ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia. Good morning, welcome back to Durian ASEAN. This is Grace.
Good morning, you're listening to Gowri.
And we are at the Durian ASEAN, the daily news where we deliver news from Southeast Asia. So let's start up with our very hot news on social media especially. Apparently this Chinese lady, she went to JPJ regarding her driving license, and then she was rejected because of her clothing.
Yeah, she was wearing something that was quite short, and they refused to provide her any kind of service until she actually covered up with a sarong. So I don't know, do you think that JPJ went too far with this, or could it be her fault that she was wearing something short?
Well, it says that whenever you go to government buildings, it's necessary to wear something to cover your, don't expose yourself too much. But I saw the picture of the Chinese lady, and it didn't look that exposing or too sexy or to a lower cut. It was just right.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I saw the picture as well. I do agree that government departments do have a dress code, and you usually have to wear something long, something covered up, or probably even dress in a formal way.
Yeah.
But when I saw the picture, there was nothing exactly indecent about it, or nothing that was too sexy or inappropriate for anyone. But I think that again, that's very subjective, right?
Well, it is very subjective, but I think they went to extreme, even giving her the sarong to just wear the top, bottom. But however, when she goes to the desk, it is just the people see her face, only the top
That's
part.
right, because it was just the photo, the passport size photo, and they don't have to see her legs. But again, the thing is, JPJ did come forward and say that they probably went too far as well with what they did, how they treated the women, and I think a couple of NGOs are not happy as well, and they're trying to get JPA to apologize to her. But as hard as it sounds, I think that being in Malaysia, perhaps when going to a government department, we should probably think twice or three times about what we're wearing and whether or not this can be considered sexy or inappropriate for the people.
I mean, inappropriate and then being sexy is two different stories.
Exactly.
And then they went there just to renew their driving license. It wouldn't take even the 1 hour. It would just take a short time.
Actually, that's right. It can be done within like half an hour.
Yeah,
and it's
then
not
just
something. It's not something that you have to meet a lot of higher ups and go through a lot of procedures. Pretty much just sit there, take a photo, submit your forms, and you're done.
Exactly. And then the people are just rejected because of their clothing. I mean, if it is really inappropriate, then yes, of course, it's very understanding that they have to do so to pay the respect as well. But however, I mean, the lady was just wearing the casual clothing, and then she was rejected. And with that, then she was given the sarong to cover her bottom, which was just above just knee. The skirt was not up to see her buttocks or anything else.
And I think it goes back to the whole culture as well. Maybe the way you define what's inappropriate in the Malay culture, Indian culture, and the Chinese culture can be very different, because we grew up with different values and different things that our parents have been telling us, and that sort of translates into the way we dress as well. And I think what she was wearing probably was totally acceptable in her family. There's nothing wrong with that. But when she steps out of the house, some other people might look at her and think, hey, that's not appropriate at all. So it depends on different people and what is their background and how they perceive things like this.
You have a good point there. And talking about the culture here, we go to our recent event about the Sabah quake. Is it also culture that the government always takes action to certain issues or certain events a bit later, because it only looks like they take action after it is highlighted on the media, or when people voice out their opinions that really needs to be taken. And then finally, Najib visited the affected areas.
Yeah, so he did visit the affected areas in Kota Kinabalu, and I think how do I say this? Not the interesting part, but what I would like to bring up here is the fact, like you mentioned, he responded really late, although he went to Arab, and he also came out with a few statements saying that, oh, this is important, I need to take care of the bilateral ties between Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. And it was also the birthday of the Malaysian king, and he had to leave for an official visit because the king and both the crown prince were involved. And then going back to what I said, he said the bilateral ties are very important, but I think what's even more important is that your own people are dying back home.
Exactly.
And there is no justification saying that something was more important and I had to leave the country and be here at this time.
Yeah, I don't think we can be so diplomatic at this point, and this is very obvious. And our PM Najib always gives his own reasons why he had to do that, why he had to do that.
I think
and I'm thinking that is it the culture as well?
Right. Even last year when he went to play golf, he said exactly the same thing. It's about the bilateral ties between Malaysia and the US, so that's why he couldn't be here during the floods. I think he probably needs some help prioritizing to decide which is more important at which point of time. And I think another interesting thing as well is when all this happened, and I tried to look for different responses on social media.
Right.
And of course, you have the whole masses criticizing him.
Oh yeah, of course.
Calling him irresponsible, that he's not being accountable for what happened. But there are also some people who say, why can't he leave the country? He's a prime minister. There's no reason for him to be there, because what can he do? His job is to delegate the task and not actually to get down and to do the work. And I don't know about you, but I think that's a very wrong mindset to have. You can be the prime minister or whatever it is, but if there's a tragedy like this, you can get down there and do the work as well.
To me, I'm on the same boat as with you, Gowri, here, because he is the leader of the country, and once the leader is not there at the moment, whether he can do something about it immediately or not, it gives a lot of support to the people, and with his presence, he can also earn the credibility that he's there right there at that moment to giving the helping hands. That means he's willing to help out people without not being present at the moment. I mean, it is very important, of course, to have a bilateral relationship or to come up with a solution, or even ties are very important in terms of the international relations. However, when it comes to internal issues, it is very also, I think it's even more important to serve people in the right way and to hear what people are suffering, people are going through. And this event is happening right after, or perhaps the few days after he didn't appear at one of the events, the dialogue session with the NGOs. And this is just one after the other. He disappoints people again and again.
That's right. And even after all the calls for him stepping down and all, I would expect him to not go missing in action so much, because while the dialogue, nothing to hide, is one thing, but this is a real tragedy that happened. And you were right when you said that he was not around, and that doesn't give people the urgency.
Right.
Like, he probably did tell people what to do, but he was not here to make sure that it really did happen. And if you read some of the responses from the people in Kota Kinabalu as well, they said most of the help came from the mountain guides or the local authorities there. There was nothing much from the government, really.
Exactly. Well, we hope to hear more positive news from the government. However, regarding this Sabah earthquake, it is one of the very rare occasions that happen in Malaysia, especially when it comes to natural disaster.
So a little bit of update actually, where Najib also said that he's going to install seismic sensors that are very advanced and will be able to give an earlier warning if there's any earthquake that's about to happen.
Perhaps they need to learn the examples from Japan, because they are very Japan is very well known for having a lot of frequent earthquakes, and then they have all those emergency reactions, what to expect and where to hide, and all those building constructions. And when it comes to architect, it's all different. Perhaps Malaysia needs to learn and step by step from
I guess
now on.
we're just not used to the whole earthquake culture yet. It's still very new.
Very new.
And it's we used to boast to other countries saying that, oh, we are natural disaster free, nothing ever happens here. So I think it's about
That's
time
one of the pride
to
that we
change
have so
that.
far.
Exactly.
Well, we'll be back after this short break, and then let's continue with political news from Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Grace.
This is Gowri.
And we are still at the ASEAN Daily News. And in this part, we'll be sharing and discussing about the politics news from Southeast Asia.
And there's been a lot happening lately, and some very critical issues as well, especially in terms of ASEAN and what ASEAN can do about it.
Right. So what can ASEAN do, Gowri, at this point? Which news shall we discuss first here? Perhaps we can do what's going on in the Myanmar, perhaps. Okay, so the Pakistani Taliban urged Muslims in Myanmar to rise up and fight the country's rulers, and also Taliban's resources and then training facilities were available to help them take up the sword. Well, this sounds very ambitious. At the same time, it sounds like a war now.
Yeah, it actually sounds like a call for them to resort to extremism and to they also use the word jihad here, where
Exactly.
the Pakistani Taliban actually calling for jihad in Myanmar. So this is a very serious issue actually to use the term jihad in this case. I mean, human rights is one thing, but for them to call for people to take arms and to die because of things like this, I think they are kind of crossing the line here, because they say take up the sword and kill in the path of God, and of course that's something that we do not want to encourage in this region or anywhere else in the world. Killing in the name of God, killing in the name of religion. There has to be another way to solve this problem, and I think that the problem here is things have gotten out of hand so much. We have been using the diplomatic way,
Right.
saying that okay, we hope Myanmar will do something, we hope Malaysia will do something as the ASEAN chair, we hope Indonesia will do something. It's just too much of being so nice that I think the Pakistani Taliban have had it, and they are like, you know what, just screw this, just start killing people, defend yourself, that's fine.
And that's the very scary part here, because they're being very smart at this point, because they've heard about this now, and then they know that people are nowhere to go, and then they're just rescuing people in the name of something in their own religion. And that this is we talked about this a long time ago, how all these Middle East countries are affecting Southeast Asia to recruit members for their oldest agenda, or whatever the policies or the plans they have to attack the other countries as well. And then they said our training centers, our resources, training people, everything is available to provide comfort to you. And imagine all these Rohingyas, even Bangladeshis, who hear all this news.
Yeah.
They'll be more than happy, because they'll finally be able to live better than the current situations.
Exactly. I think this is a very opportunistic move, because they have observed it for a while, like you were saying, and this is their time to step in. And this message was sent to the media actually by one of the members of the Taliban. And of course we know that Myanmar has been marginalizing about 1.3 million Rohingya as citizens, and also a lot of restrictions over them in terms of family size, movement, access to jobs. Some of them were even tortured and killed. And what's scarier is that you were right when you said when they say things like, oh, our training centers, resources, everything is available to you, we will give you the comfort you need. Of course, it's going to sound very, very promising, and sort of provides relief to the Rohingyas who have spent their whole lives being tortured, being discriminated against. And the TTP, which is the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, that is the name of the organization. It seems they have already killed thousands of people in numerous fights, especially in Pakistan, since 2007. And now they are moving on, showing some interest in the Rohingya issue.
And this is very scary, Gowri, because, I mean, we knew that they have been taking very smart move in, especially on social media as well. But now this is a direct sort of interaction between them and then people in Myanmar, because I'm sure they have less access to internet, and then the only way they can approach is via media and also public announcement, which they already did. But I wonder how Myanmar will take an action to this, or even ASEAN as a whole, because we are at the urge or at the plan of sending the messages to people that please don't join this army in the Middle East, especially the youth, and try to come up with the whole this protection mechanism and how ASEAN can do about it. But they already penetrated this particular area, and this is a very sensitive issue when it comes to Southeast Asia.
Well, if ASEAN and Myanmar don't do anything about this, I guess we wouldn't be surprised if some of them actually went over and joined the Pakistani Taliban or any other groups that is offering them comfort at this point.
Right. Moving on to the similar news, well, which is that Myanmar adapts the policy to settle the boat people crisis. And it looks like the country is about to do something, but then it's not executed yet.
So that's good that Myanmar is doing something. I do hope that they speed it up, because we already have another party coming in and offering what Myanmar has not been offering them. And it's definitely a positive move by Myanmar for the first time in so many months, where they are coming up with a policy to finally settle this crisis. And this was passed on Tuesday, just yesterday, where Myanmar's House of Nationalities are going to adopt a decisive policy for the detained Bangladeshi boat people. So this is, I guess, more targeted towards the boat people and not really the Rohingya issue as a whole. But it's definitely a good step.
And it's good to hear that Myanmar is doing something finally. I mean, other than Indonesia and Malaysia, who has been giving temporarily a shelter to all these affected people on the boat. However, this is not the end of all this resolution to these issues, especially when it comes to human rights, because it's bigger than that. When you think about it, this Rohingya community issue has been going on for decades, and well, Myanmar is finally giving the helping hand. But however, where is the solution to the root of all these causes?
Yeah, it goes back to a lot of things. This is just the boat people. Like I said, it is a good start, but we need to go back to that 1.3 million people who are affected, and not just a few hundreds that are in the boat. And probably they can use this policy, expand it from there, and see how they can guarantee the safety or provide them just with the basic needs, with employment, with shelter, things that every human deserves to have. And also don't deny them to their basic access. Don't torture them, don't discriminate against them, because as a nation there will always be a majority group and a minority group. It's inevitable, and the best thing for them to do is, if tolerance is not working the natural way, then the government has to intervene and come up some policy to make sure these people do not get treated or tortured by the others, by the police or whoever it is that's guarding the Rohingya camps.
But I guess here what's more important is the ASEAN, because Myanmar is part of ASEAN. The whole this community needs to come up with, as a whole team, to come up with a solution. If Myanmar still rejects to do so, apart from this saving boat people. So
I think, you know what's interesting, Grace? You realize that they didn't use the word Rohingya; they said Bengali boat people.
Exactly. So they keep emphasizing
that they are still in denial. They still don't want to use that term, even though they are addressing the problem.
And you never know, these Rohingya people may be taken by other parties, and that could be more dangerous, and then even that could be the threatening sort of weapon to Southeast Asia. And let's go to another disappointment news coming all the way from our nation, Malaysia.
Disappointment this morning.
Yeah. Well, coming from Tony Fernandes, he expressed his disappointment that saying that no one is putting the people first.
And I think this is, of course, going back to our ASEAN theme this year. That is supposed to be people-centered. I think Malaysia, as the ASEAN chair, our Prime Minister has also given a few speeches talking about his plans and how ASEAN is going to include the people and involve the people in all the policies, all the moves that they are planning to do. But I think it has been 6 months so far, and that has not really been the case. I mean, we just talked about the Rohingyas, that whole human rights issue has not been solved. There are other refugee cases as well in Cambodia that's happening, and I think even in our own country, all this issue about migrant workers, about labor rights, and of course, finally, the most recent one is what happened in Sabah.
Right.
And it seems that all these examples that happened does not really reflect a people-centered ASEAN. And
Not at all.
That's what Tony Fernandes was also venting on Twitter yesterday.
And then he said these are very strange times in Malaysia. There's no accountability. No one is putting people first. And these are very disappointing times. And I can totally agree with what he said. Because even his point of view, and then I'm sure he shares the same point of view as in how public has been thinking about it. And also he added by saying the government and the opposition spend so much time on race and religion. Will there ever be a truly Malaysian party that puts people first? And then he just goes on.
Right.
And this is purely based on how he has been observing the government's reaction to certain times and also the events that you mentioned before.
I think, this was of course tweeted by Tony Fernandes, but it clearly reflects what every Malaysian is probably thinking of right now. And probably not just Malaysians, everyone in the Southeast Asian region as well. People who are wondering what is happening to all these refugees, what is happening to our migrant workers. Even in Indonesia, a lot of people come to Malaysia to work from Philippines. It's a movement of labor between so many different countries, but there is no proper law or policy to protect these people. So it goes beyond the whole thing, not only in Malaysia, but even in ASEAN itself. Can we and will we ever be a people-centered community or an entity together? Because that is supposed to be our theme for this year, but so far it has not really been going that well.
It is something that we should really think about, and perhaps the people as ASEAN having the sense of belongings to ASEAN need to come up with something and voice out to the governments of ASEAN perhaps. Well, we'll take another short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the economic and business side from Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Triana ASEAN. You're still with Grace?
And this is Gowri with you here on the ASEAN Daily for our Wednesday morning.
Right. So let's go to our economy and business part of Southeast Asia. Well, ASEAN is moving in the right direction in forming ASEAN. And let's say we agree with this term or not. Well, ASEAN is heading in the right direction, and it will be concluded by the end of this year when it comes to ASEAN Economic Community. And that will provide a massive marketplace for companies looking for better growth in the region.
Right, and this is said by the Standard Chartered Bank Malaysia Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer Mahendra Gursahani. And he also said that it would take some time for the AEC to settle down, as there are too many challenges that needs to be addressed. So I'm glad that he doesn't deny that we do have a lot of work to still do in terms of achieving the AEC.
And it is not easy at all, of course, for having all these 10 ASEAN member states to agree to every single detail and even to achieve the single market. It takes time, and it wouldn't just it won't be achieved like overnight or even by the end of this year, but we still do have faith in achieving ASEAN economic community for sure, because with time and with the ups and downs, with a lot of agreements, after passing through a lot of agreements, then only we'll be able to understand better and also to be able to benefit the whole population and also the interest as well.
I think you're right. 10 member countries to come together under one entity might be very tricky, might be very challenging. But I think that at the end of this year, even if they do not get all their policies in sync, even if they do not manage to get every detail of it right, the least that they can do is to make sure that every country has the same vision and heading in the same direction, especially in terms of human rights and in terms of taking care of the migrant workers and other labor rights.
Right. So ASEAN Economic Community still has a lot of issues regarding the unskilled labor movement and also when it comes to a lot of infrastructure matters. However, it says that it looks quite positive. So we hope that it goes on positively and also to be able to see the right execution of all these plans and the policies that have made so far.
Well, we have 6 more months, so we'll wait and see what will happen at the end of this year and whether or not we achieve all our goals.
Yeah, and also we really hope to see the benefits that's given out to the people and citizens of ASEAN. Well, moving on to the next news, which is about the Malaysian online sales in the 2020 or 2020 to bit analysis projection. So MCMC, or the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission, expects that Malaysia's online retail sales figures by 2020 to exceed the 6.1% projection by the market research analyst.
And he also said that Frost & Sullivan had estimated that 6.1 in retail sales in Malaysia would come from online system by 2020. I think this is a very interesting observation because everything is pretty much going online these days.
Exactly.
And a lot of businesses are being conducted just online and from people's home, and they don't even have a physical office. And I think that in our pursuit with the 11th Malaysian Plan and also our Vision 2020, everything we have to really push it to keep up with the other countries or also with other regions in the world on how fast things are moving and how advanced technology has become, and for us to make use of that and also make sure that Malaysia keeps up with that level of online sales and to bring in more revenues from online retail.
You're right here, because with all this development of social media platforms, a lot of people are using or utilizing these social channels to do the businesses, and all these SMEs are a majority, we could say it's retail industry here. So it could be right that by 2020 it will exceed the 6.1 projection by the market research. And also going to the another news, which is about Apple. Very shortly they've launched a new streaming service, and it's their own stuff. It's called Apple Music.
Apple Music.
So, well, we have a lot of streaming online services, such as one of the most famous is Spotify. And then Apple Music has launched already to provide quite powerful, it could be a very powerful rival to Spotify and also other platforms such as Pandora and also Z's fledgling title. And it will be reached to 100 countries already.
And of course, it will initially be available only to Apple consumers with Apple devices. Later this year, they will also start providing that service to Android users, which is a shift for Apple because they don't usually do that, providing their app for Android users.
Yeah, exactly.
And it seems they are really trying to rival with the other mobile system and also some of the other online streaming services that you mentioned earlier. And this will also Apple has traditionally known for limiting its services and its content to only Apple users, and you need to have sort of the three devices, the MacBook, the iPad, and the iPhone, if you want all your contents to sync and make it easier to use. But it looks like they are trying to open up that market, trying to reach out to Android users as well this time.
It looks a bit late for Apple to come up with this kind of idea, because all the other companies already started. And according to James McCovey, at Forrester Research, he says that, well, it is true. Apple comes late to the music streaming business due to, in part, to Steve Jobs' refusal to believe that music subscription services would ever work. So it is also part of his sort of belief in the company. He said that perhaps the music may not work in the company, but well, to compete all the Spotify and the other companies, perhaps it could be a good and healthy competition. But what will happen to iTunes when it comes to the Apple Music? And that's another question, because a lot of people have been using Apple iTunes there. And it is not a streaming services, but it's also part of the service that we've been using so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when it comes to iTunes, it's a little bit tricky because you do have to pay for your music.
Yeah.
And with a lot of free online streaming that's available, there's really no reason for people to keep using iTunes. And I think that's when Apple realized that they need to start changing the way that they do things. Otherwise, they will eventually lose out to the other service providers.
And let's moving on to perhaps the educational part. We'll touch on the social culture very shortly here. In Cambodia, English classes are, they are more popular than Chinese apparently.
Yeah, this is surprising because of how close Cambodia is to China, and you would assume that people in Cambodia want to learn Chinese more than they want to learn English. But that's not the case, and I think it's probably a good thing, because we were just talking about the AEC earlier, about the ASEAN integration, and one of the things that we still haven't settled yet is what language we're going to use. I mean, if you remember during the ASEAN summit that happened in KL, not all the presidents or prime ministers could speak English, so they needed to have their personal translators, they needed to have subtitles, transcription, and that made it a little inconvenient as well, because things don't always get translated exactly as probably what they meant. It gets rephrased, and some points may be lost. So probably one of the things that we can also do is to decide on one official language of communication, and I think it's great that Cambodia is embracing English classes very positively.
And it's very good sign, because Cambodia can be one of the tourism attractions, and all those tourists, the investors, government factories, they are currently coming to Cambodia, and they need translators. However, if all these people can speak and communicate in English, it'll be easier for them to invest, or also to be able to convince all these investors from China, Singapore, and Malaysia to build the factories. And they need Chinese and or even the Cambodian languages also for tourism as well at the moment.
Right. I think some people will not be too happy about this news, because English is also seen as a language of colonization, because the reason we speak English is because the British were here, and it kind of also reflects post-colonialism in a way. But I would beg to differ with that. I think that if it makes communication easier, then why not? Well, there's nothing wrong with everyone mastering English, but of course that doesn't mean that they forget their own language, and in this case for Cambodia, the Khmer languages, and also learn up some Chinese as well, because of their close proximity to the region.
I mean, when it comes to Southeast Asia, we have really big benefits when it comes to language, and not only the English, but still Mandarin is the first language in the world. So if we can both contain these two languages, we can become very linguistic as in the whole ASEAN community.
That's
in the
right.
future.
And one person can probably speak up to like 3 or 4 languages.
Exactly how these EU countries do speak English, both English and French at the same time. Well, coming to the last news, which is about the SEA Games, and it's regards to the football, Gowri. And it says the overcoming nerves, the key is against the Cambodia.
Yeah, so I think Singapore is a bit afraid of Cambodia here because they do have a very strong football team, and because of that, they are trying very hard to prepare their under-23 football squad, especially a few key players, and I think their key striker would be Sahil Suhaimi, who has also focused on target practice ahead of Monday's Group A fixture against Cambodia. And it's a match that they must not only win, but must also do so convincingly.
Right.
Because so far they've only won 1-0 over the Philippines and 2-1 lost to Myanmar. So they are third in the group, and of course, as the host, they don't want to lose out, and they are trying their best to step up and take on Cambodia in football.
So, well, let's hope for the best for both teams. Personally, I don't know which team to support at this point, but then I really wish them the best for this SEA Game football and also other sports when it comes to SEA Games. So that's it for our ASEAN Dailies today, and look for us visit us at our website first, rianasean.com, and we have other social media channels such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
And always remember to listen to us live from Monday to Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. on www.duranasean.com, or you can download the TuneIn app on your smartphone, look for Duran ASEAN, and you will be tuned in to us.